The views and opinions expressed during this show do not necessarily reflect the policy
or position of any affiliated workplace or employer.
The views and opinions of this show do not constitute recommendations for therapy.
Please contact a licensed SLP for individual consult
on your situation.
Please listen carefully.
What is communication?
An essential behavior of life. We have the both blessing and responsibility of trying to foster in others.
It's transmitting a thought from one person to another.
It's the strongest way for two people to convey information to each other.
The back and forth between two people.
Communication is a lifeline.
It's just connection with other people.
Connecting people in terms of ideas or thoughts or needs.
Draws us out of ourselves, draws us into that relationship, builds up our families. Without it, we'd be lost.
Whatever it is that we do to express intent and achieve an impact.
Communication is the ability to express your needs, wants, frustrations, and desires to anyone that you feel needs to have that information.
Welcome to Speech Science, episode number 164. I'm Matt Hott, a speech and language pathologist located in the schools, and I also do home health care for stroke and dementia rehab. Joined, as always, around the horn, our pediatric SLP located in the great state of Texas, Michelle Wintering.
Hi, Matt.
Hello, Michelle. And then the PTSD SLP. That is a lot of letters.
I know, I'm sorry.
Rachel Archambault, down in Florida.
Hi, everyone.
Hello, Rachel. And then from the great white north, it is our adult medical expert, Marie Severson. I almost called you Marie Madison. I apologize. Marie, how's it up there? Are you guys warm yet? Is there snow? Why are you wearing a sweater in May?
Well, we had to turn the heat on today, Matt, after several days of cold. And a week ago, it was 97 degrees. So that's what we're doing over here.
That is not fair. That is not right in any way, shape, or form. On today's show, we're going to dive in to a conversation about RPM and also facilitated communication. We're going to look at the impact of ABA and then also a new research article looking at dysphagia following an anterior cervical spine surgery. Of course, we also check in with the Informed SLP. And we want to check in with you, so make sure you head to our website, speechsciencepodcast.com, and email us, speechsciencepodcast@gmail.com. At the beginning of the show, I said it's episode 164. On your iTunes player, you're going, where's episode 163? And it is lost somewhere in the internets as my CPU died 2.5 weeks ago and took with it whatever files we had for episode 163. So we're waiting on Zoom to fix that. Y'all, I can't handle any more computer stress because it's like a big old splinter in the side of my face.
Well, you've sort of been dealing with the crash of the computer in the last week, Matt.
So anyone that doesn't have any idea what we're talking about, 2 weeks ago, we went to record an episode, and like a good steward of the show, I said, let me reboot my computer so nothing bad happens during the episode. And then that was the last time that computer turned on.
Little did you know.
The nice folks at Micro Center then informed me that the loud noises my computer was making for the last month was it telling me that something wasn't right. Yes, and I also didn't reboot it for like a month, and then it was gone. So, but we're back up and running, and the lights work again on the computer.
Yay.
So that's always fun. So I gave you guys a prompt before we start and get into the show. So this is kind of a way to start us off a little bit on a lighter note, and then we'll dive into some of the deeper stuff happening in the world and in the world of therapy. But on a lighter note, let's start off. What is a cultural phenomenon that you have somehow missed out on completely? So, for example, I have somehow missed Outlander. My wife watches Outlander and also This Is Us. And I have missed out on both of those shows 100%. I saw the episode where he dies with the crock pot, but I have missed out
Spoiler alert. Spoiler
that was like
alert.
5 years ago, and that was a Super Bowl thing.
I know.
But no, so what is something that you have missed out that everyone else in the world seems to have known about? Also, Outlander, my wife watches, and I'll sit in there sometimes, and I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. So, what about y'all?
I've got a big one that until I was about late 20s, 27 and 28, I had never seen any Star Wars. So
wow.
Yeah, I know
fair.
It's kind of
That's
impressive, right? That has since changed, but in large part because my husband's family loves it, and my son has gotten into. He hasn't only ever seen clips, but he knows what he calls the robots, all the droids, and knows a lot of the characters. So we've had fun with that. Plus, I mean, they just keep bringing out more. Like they've revitalized that whole, Star Wars culture in the last decade. So I had more reason to watch the old ones because of the new things coming out. Now, the second one, because it came up in a discussion with Matt more recently, is The Goonies. I've never seen The Goonies.
Oh, that's right.
Wow.
I'm sorry for you.
I know. I've been told we need to change this, but there you go.
It's a
Full
classic.
disclosure.
Yeah.
I think that might have been the reason I asked this question 2 weeks ago when we went to originally record.
Yep.
Wow.
Huh.
I think you have to watch that one. Like that's.
Well, I have a friend moving here this summer, and she was like first on the list. We're watching The Goonies. So.
Good.
Just be careful though. Some of those older movies, if you watch for the first time,
now it's just.
Yeah, because like. I don't know. Some of them hold up well. Some of them do not hold up like they should. Just saying.
Yeah. There's something to be said about the effect of nostalgia, because sometimes when you're going back and watching, you still have those feelings that you had when you watched it in a different time of your life, but then you have that lens of adulthood.
Absolutely.
And sometimes those things conflict significantly.
Well, yeah, Jurassic Park, Laura Dern and Sam.
I just saw that.
Saw it.
Like, yeah, at the time it was completely appropriate that she was 23 and I was 45. But now looking back on it, not appropriate at all that there's a 22-year-old age difference between the two of them.
Yes, that grosses me out.
So.
It's interesting though, and I have a theory. It's not really a theory, an observation. Everyone in the 90s and the 80s looked like they were 40 when they were 20. I don't know what it is about the style, but every time I'm looking it up on Wikipedia, shocked that I thought Laura Dern was in her, for sure, mid-30s in that movie. No, she was 23.
Now in the book, she was in the book, they never had a romance. And she was the student and he was the professor. And there was no romantic subplot. So.
Yeah, well, Hollywood.
Yeah.
I know. So. Little 10-year-old me who had read the book, I was like, yeah, that of course they're not like in a relationship. The book was different. And then as I'm older, I was like,
yeah.
Well, there's
I was remembering just the age difference thing. You reminded me, if you all know the movie Love Actually, Keira Knightley was only 17 or 18 when that was filmed. And she was the bride, like in the wedding scene. So that always threw me off.
And the little boy that plays Liam Neeson's son, I think it is in there, was like just a few years younger than her, and he played an actual child. So it is very interesting. And there's a joke that goes around in Hollywood of like, what do you call an actress like after 30 or something? It's like grandma essentially, and they do pair even Jennifer Lawrence and Bradley Cooper are always together, and there's a significant age gap there. So it is interesting, and I think they are making changes in Hollywood. I hope that they're understanding that bothers people, and I think they should make those changes personally.
Rachel and Marie, what is the cultural phenomenon that you have somehow missed out on?
I made a list.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure there's more on my list too, so don't worry.
So I thought about it specifically for HBO because growing up when HBO was a thing, I was not allowed to watch anything on there. So like slowly as I got older, I watched Sex and the City. I watched a couple shows that were on there, but now HBO, I have not watched Euphoria. Succession, which is talked about all the time.
So I need to add all of these to my list.
Yes. Yeah, these are, very highly ranked. Boardwalk Empire has been the last few years. And then from my childhood, when I was not allowed to watch this, I have not seen Oz, 6 Feet Under, or The Wire, and those are on my list. So I just did HBO. I've missed all those, and whenever I tell people, they're like, that was the greatest show, 6 Feet Under, or Euphoria has such good reviews about it and some negative reviews, but I feel like I do have to watch these.
I think you get a pass if you missed it when it wasn't really age appropriate.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's fair. That's fair.
But you've seen Game of Thrones and The Sopranos.
I have. I caught up during COVID. I watched all of The Sopranos. I've watched some other stuff too I watched all of Sex and the City in grad school, and I'm glad I wasn't allowed to watch it as a child because I could appreciate it now as an adult, which was much better.
There's not a whole lot I miss. I have really young siblings. And, well, not really young. They're, a couple are under 18 and one of them is in their early 20s. So I really enjoy pop culture a lot. So oftentimes if I'm going to miss something, I'll just do it really delayed. Like I just watched Encanto and it's amazing, but like nobody cares anymore. So like I'm all alone.
I still care. My children still care. So.
We just watched it 3 times today. So yeah.
Okay. All right. That's good. I think what came up for me was I really just missed all the new Marvels. They just keep coming out with so many, and I haven't seen any of the new ones at all. And now it feels like it's too far gone. Like there's no sense in trying to catch up. And
Mike,
I know people
Mike
always
and Matt
disagree. I know.
So I just read an article today, and they actually said,
as he has all his Marvel posters,
as I have
him.
everything behind me. But no, they were actually saying the way they set up this new stuff is that you don't have to watch the previous 150 hours to understand to enjoy it. Now, if you have watched it, you're going to be like, oh, there's that one thing, but they do a pretty decent job of saying this is why this is emotionally funny or emotionally sad. So I would say dive into Moon Knight. That was a really solid show.
Okay, noted.
Moon Knight.
Yeah, he gets the powers from the Egyptian god Anu or whatever it was.
Okay. Haven't heard of that one.
Yeah, it's got Oscar Isaacs in it.
Okay.
Oh, I know who that is. Yeah.
So normally this is where in the show we would head over to the emails and say, this is the SS Pod shout out or the SS Pod due process. And that was the plan until yesterday. And unfortunately, again, in the country where we always offer up our thoughts and prayers to change something, but make no actual change, Uvalde, Texas, another school shooting. And I know I sent Rachel you a message last night and said that I was planning on not letting my son stay up late with me to watch the Sonic 2 movie. And instead, it just seemed really appropriate to just say, screw it, let's stay up late and watch a movie because of this freaking
those are valid feelings.
right,
for sure. And I've seen a lot of people today posting on Facebook, especially, hold your kids tighter, and that's so true. The problem is how many times this has happened now. For those of you that are listening that don't know my background, I worked at a school that had a shooting in 2018. And since that's happened, in the last 4 years, I've reached out to 10 SLPs that have had this happen at a school in the last 4 years alone. So this is now where I get called into action. This is where I actually made a post today about it. I allow myself to care. I have boundaries of where I focus my energy. So this is where I do take action, that I allow myself to email those SLPs, to give them the resources that we were given, that I've gathered over the last few years. I'll put in an email, I'll send it to them, I'll give them my number and say, like, you can text me or call me at any time. Sometimes I hear from them. For the most part, I hear from them. Some, I don't know if it just got lost in the shuffle, which is totally fine, but I do want to offer my support if they want it. And I have the world's worst group chat of other SLPs that have had this happen. And, I got so many messages today of like checking in on you. And I'm one that they should feel confident that I'm doing okay. I'm angry. I'm so angry. It's not that I'm sad. I'm not crying. I don't think my body will allow me to, but I'm angry that this is continuing to happen. I'm angry now that my best friends have children, that I'm looking at them in fear. They are in fear. The students are jaded by it. They go in and they're like, yeah, it's another code red or whatever. This is their daily lives. And I spent today watching the news, which is a boundary that I set for myself that I broke, and I knew what I was doing getting into it. But I wanted to feel those emotions. I allow myself to feel. And I feel angry is all I can say about it. I'm angry that this continues to happen. It's not going to stop. And people say it's not the time for politics, or, we don't have a solution to it. I feel like the solutions are out there, but it's not our jobs to figure out what that is. We can pay people the big bucks to analyze the data and look into solutions, but I'm angry. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that, Rachel.
Thanks for letting me vent. Thanks for letting me vent.
Well, and then also thank you for you are the PTSD SLP. You have a wonderful resource online for people going through this and then other situations to have a place to contact. What I don't know. There is a lot of confusion and anger from my side, being a school SLP and then a parent of kids, because in my son's school district 4 weeks ago, one of the school board members blatantly broke safety protocol and went through the building, started, just opening doors and videotaping classrooms. And she was trying to prove that they were teaching CRT and grooming children and all this other stuff.
Gosh.
But like, I think back and I'm like, these are the people that, I didn't vote for, but like, these are the people that are representing the district to help guide us or push us. And then I think back into the district where I'm at. And so far, the training that I've had for the Alice or the Code Reds or whatever they call it was an officer shooting a blank in the room that I was in and then having us pretend to throw books. And right. Yes. And Marie, I see your face. That was part of my on-board training, not like yearly training as a district. That was just like, welcome to the district. We're going to let you hear what a gunshot sounds like in your classroom. And you can pretend to throw a book. Hope you're prepared if this actually happens.
See, and that's part of it that's been extremely frustrating, is the reactive nature of this. It's when it happens, here's what you do, not how do we stop it from happening. So we are preparing young kids. I saw a TikTok today about a dad who's teaching his 9-year-old or 7-year-old that's having that discussion. It's like having the talk. It's having the talk of when it does happen, you're gonna hit them and run. And it's wild. And, I feel very selfish in some ways that I hear about people are screaming, but the babies, the children. And it's like, we all, who supervises the children, the staff, we are putting our lives in danger every single day. I had multiple SLPs reach out to me today and they're like, I'm done with the schools. I can't take this pressure anymore. And our district is traumatized in general, just from the drills. And I put a poll on my personal Instagram yesterday. And I said, if you are not a staff member in a school, do you fear that a shooting will happen at work? And a lot of people said yes, surprisingly. And I didn't realize that other people in other professions felt that way, but a lot of them were in hospitals or places that have been targeted before. My friends that are in accounting, they're like, no, I feel good about it. There's just so many places it has happened now that we can't say that this place is not going to have it happen. It happens at places of worship. It happens at movie theaters, at schools, at grocery stores. We just had this. So it continues to happen. There doesn't seem to be a safe space. And it's really frustrating. It's exhausting. And, I was watching the news last night and it's the same people that 4 years ago were just traumatized the day before, and they're speaking with 4 years of experience now, and they're hardened. Like, you can see in their faces that they're just like, it's another day in the world. Like, we told you this was going to happen. So
you're talking about the students that experienced it?
Yes, the students that were called to action, or the parents that lost a child that were, screaming for their kids, are now big advocates for whatever they believe is the solution. And I saw them on the TV last night that they're going to be the ones coaching these new round of parents through what they went through. And it's this terrible club to be in. And we are currently going through our trial. We have a living shooter, which is going to be very different. We've never had this before. So whatever the outcome of that case is going to set the precedent for future ones to come. And I'm exhausted by it. And many people are. And I hope that, because it's so close to summer break, I mean, they canceled the rest of the school year. I think their last day was supposed to be today. I hope they get the resources they need over the summer, because we had months of national help. I hope that this summertime will be helpful for them, being given services or time at home with their families and given support.
Yes.
Well, and thank you, Rachel, just for, I mean, you've taken on this role that obviously you did not seek out or want. And in the last 4 years, you have connected with other people before and after your experience that are going through this. And I'm sorry, I've been kind of quiet during it, but it's just, thank you for taking that role that, it is not an easy spot to be put in. And I know that the SLPs that you're connecting with, and hopefully people listening, we do appreciate it. So
thank you. Thank you, Michelle.
Let's take a break, and then when we come back, we'll dive into some of the other stuff. You're listening to Speech Science. Welcome back to Speech Science. I'm Matt Hott, joined by Rachel Archambault.
Hi there.
Michelle Wintering.
Hey, Matt.
Marie Severson.
Hi.
Hello. All right, so changing gears, coming back up into the show. I'm a big TikTok fan, and Rachel, since following you on TikTok, your TikToks have come into my FYP, by the way.
No way.
So I'm the Ohio SLP that likes
FYP,
your stuff.
You actually, I didn't know that it was shortened to that now. That's how I'm not up on the
Yes,
For You
I'm
page,
such a
the
nerd.
FYP.
However, I came across this TikTok and I wanted to share it. And let's see, share with audio. We'll play it real quick. It's a quick 22-seconder. And I wanted to get your guys' immediate reactions from this.
Can we normalize being kind
Oops.
to other SLPs? I don't know about y'all, but I am so tired of all the shaming. Like, I'm sorry, but what might not work for 90% of your clients might work for that one. So do it. Do whatever works for your clients. You know your client. They have individual needs. Do it work. Can we normalize?
All right. So, one, our field sucks at supporting each other. But two, our field also sucks at actually calling people out who do piss poor therapy. And this is my box that I will always stand on. And I am okay shaming SLPs who do poor therapy. But I want to hear your guys' thoughts before I go on my rampant and tirade into this situation and setting.
My first reaction thought to it was, I'm like following along. I'm like, okay, I'm here for this. All right, let's stop shaming. I thought she was going to go in the social media realm or into how we can just be more supportive of other SLPs. When she goes into 90% versus, 10% of kids, whoever it works for, that's where I would hesitate a little bit, because I think she has a good point, but we need to also look at evidence. And I'm not going to be recommending a therapy by this off chance that they might be 1% of people who that works for. Now, if you're talking building a bridge with the family and trying to build on what they're using, and adding in some evidence-based practice things, then okay, I can be on board for that. But I'm not going to throw out ideas that are way from left field just because it might stick.
I think what I hear sometimes is you have SLPs that believe that they're experts in their fields because of how much experience they have, but that doesn't always mean that they're up to date on what the best EBP is or anything. So an example I have is one SLP was saying that a student of hers needed an AAC device, and the teacher was like, it was an older teacher, I think has been around at the school for like 30 years, said this student can't do that. So our job is to assume competence, and the teacher was just unfamiliar with AAC and counted her out. So the SLP, who is a CF, had to come in and be like, I know what I'm talking about. Like, I did this throughout grad school. And we do need to stop shaming each other. We need to listen to each other and have those conversations and model it, show it, and work together. The whole purpose is collaboration. So when you just count someone out like that, you get into SLP shaming. And I think that's wrong, especially as a female dominated field. It's very gossipy, and we can fall very easily into that. And we need to make sure that we are supporting each other, lifting each other up, rather than shaming each other, is my opinion.
Yeah, this one's interesting to me, only because I think of only because of the way to me, it sort of just shifts tone. I just don't think that like do whatever works for your clients and then being kind to other SLPs is like, I don't think that's mutually exclusive. Yeah. Like one isn't like dependent on the other necessarily. Yes. And I also, when statements like this are made, I often wonder what's the context, like what was the reason why it was stated. So, and there's no way to know, and I don't want to speculate, but I certainly have seen arguments like, we just need to be kind to each other. And yes, I think we should always be polite. I don't think being kind is a requirement. I think being kind is often a requirement for women, and unfairly so. So I don't really think, being nice or being seen as being nice is something that I feel a lot of pressure to do, even though I don't think that is a fair expectation all the time. I always think that I am professional and I try to be kind and nice. But I think it's also, does it need to be said that we should do whatever the patient needs? Anyways, it's hard for me to take it at face value without also reading into it, but I'm also just an overanalyzer. I love the sentiment. I think we should try to be kind and nice all the time. We should also try to do what's best for the patient all the time.
I got drugged through the online mud about 2 years ago, 4 years ago, because there was a comment about in one of the school-based SLP Facebook groups about how planning for our therapy sessions was overrated and that we should be good enough to figure out what we're doing when the kid shows up in our room and we begin therapy. And I remember that I was saying something like, if you're that type of SLP, and I'm not saying the SLP that has like the loose therapy plan, but like if you legit don't have an idea of what you're doing and then the kid shows up, not unexpectedly, but planned therapy time, they show up at their time, and then you go, oh boy, what should we do? And you just pull a random book or paper from your desk and start doing therapy. I feel like that is such a waste of the therapist's time. That is a waste of the student's time. And I even feel hardcore about that now with my daughter going through therapy, that if, I get like, I have students that we work on R, and I pull out their notebook and I see that we, like in my last session, I said, let's target RE. That's the plan. That's an okay plan. But if they're just showing up and I'm like, let's figure out what we're doing today, that stuff bugs the shit out of me.
I mean, I think you have to ask them to define what they mean by having a plan.
True.
Because what you said right there is, okay, looking at my notes can be my plan. Or we usually use one of these 3 activities as our base activity. So we're going to start with that because I know I can get to their goals with it. That kind of thing is a general plan, like you just said. Now, if somebody is just saying they don't have a plan, I'd be curious what they mean by that. Like, are you not even looking at their goals? Because that's not okay.
Right.
But if you have a really tiny caseload and you've got 5 kids and you've got their goals memorized, like maybe you can do that. But so yeah,
I would say I'm on the side of not planning. Like I would assume
now define not planning. Yeah.
I know my students' goals. If they're working on reading comprehension, if they're working on R sounds or whatever, especially in high school, I was able to be like, these are my 3 artic kids that I have, or this is fluency.
Yeah. Okay.
It might be the age also that it was student led. It was like, all right, what are you bringing to me? Or we're going to do reading online, whatever website. But I wouldn't say, I would say that my plan is their goals. I don't go like, we're doing winter theme today or something. I think planning is subjective, and I am on the no plan kind of student-led plan. So it's what that student brings to me, and I'm able to like manipulate of, okay, the 5 students in front of me, this one's working on comprehension. All of them are working on comprehension. This one's also working on whatever thing. I think planning is subjective is what I'm trying to say.
So I would guess, tell me if I'm wrong, Rachel, that when you first got that student, the first few sessions take a little more planning, like actual looking at their goals, figuring out what might work, or planning for them to bring certain materials.
Yeah.
And then after that, what you're doing makes sense to me because you have an outline in your head of what works for that patient and that student and what they're targeting. And you go from there.
I would say the beginning of the year, I'm assessing what level they're at. So if I know that they're on a 5th grade reading level, the work that I'm putting in front of them is going to be 5th grade, but it's not like I get there in the morning and I'm printing out 5th grade, whatever. When they get to the room, I say, all right, you're going on this reading website, you're clicking the 5th grade, whatever, and you are doing this, and we go over it together. I'm definitely not a planner, and I try to lead with the student led, but I think that's also a high school thing, and that's good.
I can see that.
Training executive functioning, which Mike, I wish he was here to talk about that, because I'm sure he would have something to say about it. We just got in a war about Post-it notes through Instagram. But yeah, I'm a not planner.
You and Mike did?
What did Mike say about Post-it notes? Because
I'm curious now because I use Post-it notes everywhere.
So before we get into Post-it notes, Rachel, I would say that you are planning though. Now go into the Post-it. I would say that you are
planning when people say I don't plan.
In the Facebook post that I argued about, they were saying that when they picked up the kid, they were looking around the room to figure out what to do. I would say that's not planning.
But that might be... Yes, go Marie.
This to me, what I'm hearing from this is I'm actually hearing something really familiar, and I can actually put myself in that position because when I'm working with adults, you don't have there's not like you're not working on short-term memory and you've got all these different subcomponents of short-term memory and you drill it down and you don't have anything like that. So when you're doing functional therapy, you are looking around and you are looking for things. But here's the thing, you have the foundation, you have the theory-based practice. You know what the theory is, you know exactly
what the long-term goal is.
You know what you're doing. You just need to find, what am I going to use to deliver this therapeutic technique? What are we going to use to practice this therapeutic technique? And that isn't something I always plan ahead, but there's always a strong foundation there, and it is always structured by the goals and the theory and everything related to evidence-based practice.
But I would disagree, and only on the fact that I love arguing, but Marie, you and I both do home health care on adults,
this is why this works.
Right. You and I both do home health care on adults. We both, when you're walking into someone's house, like you said, you've got at least a schema in your head of first I want to target this as a warm up, and then we're going to do this. And then maybe if there's something in the house or whatnot, it's not like you're just showing up and going, what are we doing today, right? And I would say that it's the same thing in the schools. I have sets of games that I know each student can do, and those are my backup plans or whatnot. Or, Rachel, I'm not lucky enough to have computers, so I have to print out my stuff ahead of time, but it's the same idea, the same readings probably. So I would say that is like planning. It's the people that like, and maybe I'm reading too much into it, and maybe it's the angsty part of me that hates not planning. I don't know.
I think I'm hearing that we're all in agreement, if I'm being honest.
I think so.
I think we are. And I think we're all in agreement that planning is maybe means different things to different people, but we all agree that you have to be prepared for therapy. We don't want to just be winging it. Doesn't make sense. That doesn't sound like a skilled service. But you know what it made me think of initially is I wonder how much of this even is relevant if we didn't have such high caseloads or such productivity standards. If I had all the time in the world to prepare, I might be preparing and planning. That's why I started a business, honestly, because I wanted enough time to plan when I wanted to, right? And not have that be dictated by someone else. So.
All right, Rachel, what was your Post-it note battle?
So Mike had posted something on his Instagram asking if he thinks that we should do away with planners, written planners. And coming from a high school, therapy area, many of my students have executive dysfunction. They lose everything, but they always have their phone on them. So, and this is how I operate as a person with ADHD, is that every date that I have is put into my calendar. If it's not there, it doesn't exist. I also have my school email on the phone. All my school events are on that calendar. If not, it doesn't exist. I am a big Post-it lover though, and I've got multiple colors and everything. Realistically, it does not work for me because I lose them. They are not in order. They just end up stacked and they're away somewhere. So, Mike said, I think he's a big believer in the written planner, that it helps with executive dysfunction. And I agree to a point, but how many people do you see carrying around a planner? Or are guys going to carry around a day planner in their pocket as well as their wallet and their phone, especially high school kids? So I do it more for the convenience, and what are they actually going to carry is what I suggest to my students.
I feel like I say this so many times in response to things, but I feel like it depends on the client.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yes.
If I have someone who I do better if I'm utilizing my paper calendar, but I have a time to cross-check that with an electronic calendar because so much of my world is on my phone and my computer now. But there are patients I've had who a paper planner is not going to help them at all. And the other way around, trying to get them to use the phone for their planner is never going to work. So we've got to stick to some form of their paper planner and figure out where they can have it, or maybe start introducing some of the digital skills if that's appropriate as well. But I don't know. I feel like I say that so often to what we talk about, but it depends on the patient.
And that's what it should be. It should be what this individual person needs and using their strengths and weaknesses to determine what might be more helpful. And I can see for students that have ADD that I'm like, oh, you lose everything. So let's do what you always have on you. But then some of them do remember better if they write down. So for me, it's trying not to lose anything.
I'm going to shame both of you and say that you're both not right. No. I use OneNote. Are you guys familiar with OneNote?
Yes.
I haven't gotten into using it though.
So OneNote, and I'm going to show you because this is a audio podcast, so everyone loves visuals. But I've got my whole life separated by different colors. And
that's nice.
Yeah. And it's bowling, the expo, and then my other company, and then scouts and speech therapy. And then under speech therapy, I've got all my passcodes and everything else. And here's the one thing that I realized that is a problem. I don't know where so it's like the digital version of Post-it notes. I don't know where I put some of my notes.
Yep.
I was trying to get into the building the other day and I thought I put it under my home care company tab, and I didn't. I put it under the tab passwords and codes, thinking that would make sense to me. So
can you search among all of them?
I could. That's how I ended up finding it. But me being the wonderful planner that I am, I labeled the code for the front door F door. One word, F door.
Yep.
So when I looked for door, it didn't show up.
That's also what happens when I
Eternal
look.
life struggle.
That's what happens when I look at a Post-it. One, my writing is not able to be read, and two, I shorthand. So I'm like, what was this?
Why did I say that?
What does that mean?
What is F door? Why am I here?
Matt, I didn't get a good look at that passcodes list. Want to put that on the screen one more time?
So I had a audio producer years ago who used to tell me that all he would do was like his wife's name, the $sign, and then whatever number it was. And so then we figured out what the passcode was to his email, which then allowed us unfiltered access to all of the locked audio files in the building. So,
well, I mean, there's been times with different places I've worked, and I know I have a relative who've done this too, when the work makes you change it monthly. Have you ever had one that makes you change your password monthly? So what this person did, this family member of mine, was just change it to whatever the month was, with the same number and the same, special symbol, because they were making him change it every month. And he's like, I will never remember it.
That is the secret to success.
Easy to remember passwords that are hard to guess.
Just change one character, friend.
Until they have rules like this must not have 3 of the same characters from your previous
I would be
passwords.
done with that one. SpeechSciencePodcast.com, SpeechSciencePodcast@gmail.com. Email us, tell us what you think about the shaming or no shaming, planning or no planning, Post-it notes or no Post-it notes. All right. In the Rollins College in Florida, valedictorian Elizabeth Bonker is also a non-speaking student with autism or autistic person, and was using a device held by another person as she delivered her valedictorian speech. And I know on Reddit, there was a wonderful little cross post. This is also all over the Facebook pages. Is this facilitated communication? Is this spell to communicate? Is this rapid prompting method? I think this raises a lot of questions about the authenticity of a message. Where do you guys stand on something like this? How do we deliver a message like this to coworkers and say, hey, this could be great? Or is this truly independent? Is this truly functional?
I think it's important to explain to people, like when I saw this debate happening on Facebook, a lot of people were sharing it initially, like, look how great one of like these people that we would be working with, look at them succeeding, look at them having, this great speech set. But then you started seeing the comments coming in that were like, well, I think it was the mom that was holding it. Well, the mom's holding it. Did the mom put in that information? Is she pressing the button? Like, there were a lot of questions, which are valid questions. And
there are questions that a lot of people reading or watching this video are not thinking. We are.
Yes.
Because this is what we do.
Right.
Well, and like I said off air, I didn't think about any of that. I just took that at face value as a medical SLP. I wasn't even considering that was an option. I just assumed that it was that person's words, and there wasn't any. It didn't even occur to me. So it was surprising.
And I didn't learn about it in grad school at all. I didn't learn about facilitated communication or RPM or any of that. I actually knew of it from a blog of, family friends that over the years went through the training. They are big RPM family. And it's amazing seeing what that student can do. But then you do have critics saying they're not actually doing anything. It's the facilitator that's doing it. And I think the goal of AAC is for the person to be independent. So you have people that are like SLPs, we're looking for them to be independent when they're speaking, or what are the chances that this person's thoughts are actually there and not the person that is facilitating the communication? So I think all those questions are valid. I I think it's a very tough topic. And I did talk about this with some friends recently in the SLP world that say that they've seen success stories from RPM. And I'm sure if you ask parents, they're parents of children that use RPM and facilitated communication and whatever it's called now, that say it was a lifesaver for them and their family. So you do have people that support it. And I haven't seen any examples of it. I haven't worked with students that use it, haven't worked with parents. But I think the questions that are being asked of this instance are valid questions to ask.
And I know a couple of years ago, we had talked more in depth about RPM when ASHA came out with a strong statement against RPM, saying that it is a lot of what is being shown, at least what they're sharing about it, looks like a new take on facilitated communication, which there's been court cases over the years. There's been serious issues of abuse that has been accused or stated by the individual using the device with support from someone. And then it's been later proven that it wasn't truly their voice. So my hesitation with this, or I guess my focus when I see something like this, okay, I want to believe and I want to assume that that is her voice. And that was a great speech. And congratulations to her on getting her degree, because that's amazing for anyone, but especially if you have other barriers to communication. As an SLP, I do think of some of those questions. And as an SLP, I believe, having worked with a lot of AAC over the years, that part of our responsibility is to help support and encourage the full independent use of communication, whatever that looks like for that person. And that's why it's so, like, there's no prerequisites to AAC. Like, you can start it without any verbalizations, without clear cause and effect knowledge, without learning PECs first. Like, there's not this strict thing because it's so individualized. Now, but what I want to, how do I even say this? That I don't want, if it was my patient or my client or my student, I don't want anyone to be able to question that it is their voice. So that would be part of what I would want to help that family do, is that if there was ever, God forbid, something down the road where there was a situation that they could be taken advantage of or something could happen to them, we have to know, and we want them to share information with us. We have to be able to know and prove that it is their voice. And there have been cases over the years of, I'll use an example of like a group home with mostly limitedly verbal or nonverbal or some minimal AAC users. But because one of those house members, that group home members, had enough independent AAC use where they could piece together individual words, they were able to tell someone outside of the home with limited vocabulary and then share it in a courtroom, and it was investigated and shown that there was a major neglect situation going on. So I say that because you take that into a courtroom, how are you going to prove that there was an actual issue? So I know that's a severe example, but my thought is we need to support moving towards it not being questionable, of it being able to be proven that it is their voice. And some of the questions that SLPs have watching this video are, why does it always need to be the same support person with them? Why does it always need to be held up by a person, not by a slant board or at an angle or on a mount somehow? Why is it that like we don't have videos of full independent use of it? And maybe there are, or maybe there could be. But those are the questions that we have, because I don't want to doubt that it is someone's voice.
And you had mentioned facilitated communication, and it is the court case of Anna Stubblefield. And she is I believe she was a philosophy professor at the University of Rutgers who used facilitated communication, the hand under the elbow, to get permission to have sex with one of, I forget if he was someone in her research facility, but he had cerebral palsy. And she used it to give permission, to give consent for their relationship. And Michelle, as
and
you
that's
said,
one case. There's
and
another
that's one case, right?
Yeah, there's a few others, but yeah.
And hers became a big deal because she said they were in love and whatnot. And then the court case was overturned, and she's now out of jail because they can't prove either one way or the other. But as you were saying, you want to take out that question. I think where we have to be careful as SLPs with AAC in general, it doesn't matter if it's a letterboard, a keyboard, touch chat, lamp, Proliquo to go, or whatever, is that we are giving our students, our patients, the ability to give consent. And that consent is in any way, shape, or form that you're thinking of. Is it consent to sign a contract to buy a car? Is it consent to consume alcohol? Is it consent
to what's on their plate at lunch? Like,
go to church? Right.
Like it's all of that.
That is, I think, the ultimate, like you said, that is the ultimate goal. And
to take the power away, like our goal as SLPs most of the time is to work ourselves out of a job. Like I say that because like they should not need me forever. And they should hopefully not need someone to help them. Like we should get them to a point that whatever the support it is, whatever AAC it is that they need, whether it's eye tracking, whether it's tactile, whether they prefer the letter board, all of those things are their choice, but we've got to help them find what works for them so that it can truly be their voice without a question.
Agreed. And one comment that I saw about this case of the graduation was someone had mentioned, wow, whoever her facilitator got a nice degree or something. And that is the doubt that we are trying to remove from this. We want to make sure that, you know, this person worked so hard and got that degree, and to put doubt in someone's mind about, oh, well, it was RPM and that means it might be invalid. Like that's a really terrible thing.
And it's not just in the school setting. I know, Marie, it's not something that you've seen or have been around, but you know, this is, anybody can end up in a hospital or in home health or need supports like that. So these people who are using AAC are going to be in every walk of life. So it's that consent piece that Matt mentioned, I think, is so important.
And I suppose there is an application to adults. I've worked with many clients with severe aphasia, which and we're using AAC, and it's not always clear. There's bias involved, right? Oh, I really feel like I heard so-and-so say that, right? Or, ooh, based on the context, it sounded like this. And we're definitely doing guessing there. And, but, and it's a lot of hoping, and it's a lot of, we are really instilling our hopes onto that person. And I just think managing expectations is important. But at the same time, we're trying to get people to fit into our world, and maybe that's a bit of an issue too.
Very true.
I wonder if we do a poor job as the AAC experts in training those around us on what to expect and what to expect out of the student. So for example, like a lot of times folks will see someone use an AAC device and assume that they can then start testing their knowledge of a subject. And when they don't do well using that device, they automatically assume that the device is not working for that student. Where it may not be. Like, we've done this math before where I think a student uses a device that's got 12 buttons on the first page and then 12 buttons on the second page and 12 buttons on the third page. They're doing something like 144,000 button locations for a certain or it's like 60, whatever it is. But it's like 140,000 locations for a vocabulary word. They may not know where the word is to even select it. So I often wonder if we do a poor job of explaining what we do, or is it we do a poor job of showing the amount of prompting that we're doing with our students or our patients.
Well,
And
it's
I
tough
wonder,
because, oh, go ahead, Matt.
No. I was just going to say, I think that I wonder if that impacts a little bit of what leads patients, families, or other caregivers to look outside of the typical AAC realm, if that makes sense.
Yeah. When this happens a lot when we have questions that are unanswerable.
Yeah.
Like we don't know why someone's having trouble accessing, right? Is it vision? Is it fine or gross motor? Is it cognitive, right? And they can't tell us what it is. We can't get the feedback for, I can't see where this button is, or it's moving too fast, or it's, and there's not, if they could tell us, then they wouldn't probably need the device. And that is an issue. And I don't know I have this issue a lot when I'm using AAC with my adult clients too. It's why aren't they using it, or why are they having trouble? It could be 10 different things and they can't tell me what it is. And I can't look inside their mind and know what it is. So we are limited in some capacity. And then anytime that happens, you find people are going to be out there looking for alternatives then.
SpeechSciencePodcast.com, SpeechSciencePodcast@gmail.com. ABA, the article out of Fortune.com by Ariana Serenius. The autistic community is having a reckoning with the ABA therapy. We should listen. Before we dive into this, I saw a very passive-aggressive comment on Facebook about ABA, and it was from an SLP who said, when you get your ABA license with an SLP license, then I'll listen to your opinion of why ABA doesn't work.
So we do have, we do have many people that are dual certified. So I do want to talk to them about how they feel about it, or in what order did they get their certifications? Were they SLP first and then went BCBA or anything like that? We do have people in our profession. I've met them. I think this goes along with what we talked about a few episodes ago with the neurodiversity movement. And this article talks directly about the reason that this is coming up about ABA is autistic people have expressed that ABA causes trauma. So from a trauma-informed perspective, if we listen to the people that are telling us it's traumatic, the position statement of many diversity affirming therapies is that we don't like ABA. No, it's exactly a reckoning, I guess. So I have spoken to parents of children with autism, and they have said ABA saved my kid's life. There were behaviors that were so hurting, that they were hurting themselves, and we needed to extinguish this behavior. And I don't know what methods, I don't know how ABA works like that. But they said my child doesn't do those things anymore. And what do you do if a child is running into the street? How do you get rid of that behavior?
Mm-hmm. Well, and I do encourage everyone to please read the article, because there were different things I highlighted looking through it. And one thing that I think I've brought up on air before that is explicitly stated in the article, and the author has a unique perspective growing up with an autistic sibling who went through ABA, and their perspective changing on it. So I find it interesting, and they call it a quasi-monopoly that ABA has in regards to it being a spectrum disorder. We all talk about that, and this, neurodiversity and affirming therapy model that we're wanting to encourage, right? Is not a one size fits all, and shouldn't be. Just like we said in the last segment, therapy should be tailored to the patient. So why is it that, even just from a surface level, why is it that ABA seems to be not just the gold standard that it was considered for a long time? I think we've moved past that. But it almost seems to have a quasi-monopoly. Like you hear autism, and doctors or professionals for a long time are immediately like ABA. So
it's now,
go ahead. Yeah.
It's required to be covered by insurance.
Yes, is what it says in the article. And it's not only just like with speech, I might get a kid that's 2 times a week for an hour each session. I have many students that I worked at the school that get it privately for like 40 hours a week. I don't understand how that is approved, or what those 40 hours, like what the difference is. Why does speech get approved for 2 hours a week versus 40 hours a week?
Because those ABA, I'll put in quotes, therapists are with that child everywhere they go, which I would love to do as an SLP. But I've also met families who even have some concerns about ABA, and I obviously wouldn't share name or location of them,
course.
But need the childcare.
Yep.
Who are like,
Yes.
I can't lose this time because my child is a child who has to have someone with them.
So from the article, kind of right with what you guys are talking about.
Because that 40-hour thing, it's just crazy.
No, right from the article. Even more concerning, ABA has become the, quote, single most reliable way to make money in the human services field beyond being a physician, end quote. Later on, it says that there are multimillionaire behaviorists is not by itself unethical, but the misalignments between payment mechanisms and treatment reveal the feedback loop that would normally communicate a practice is abusive or ineffective is disconnected. It goes on to say most autistic people cannot choose to participate in or leave ABA. It's selected for them by family members who reap most of ABA's benefits.
But why is it?
Yeah, go for it.
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. Why is it covered? Why is it so well covered? Are they able to demonstrate
Lobbyists.
better? That's what I'm saying. Why is that lobbying so much stronger than our lobby? Why is Medicare keep getting cut for speech? Why do we only get 2 hours? What's going on here? Why isn't the lobbying happening so strongly in such an adjacent area like speech therapy?
Well, if you look at, so I believe at the very beginning, it said Blackstone acquired the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, who's also one of the major ABA supporters. So would you have a company that can, this is all speculation, so I apologize. Yeah, Rachel.
So in this article, it said, regarding what Michelle was mentioning in the article about the monopoly, it says ABA's monopoly is maintained by the scientific community's lack of research into and investment in alternative techniques that address autism as both a cognitive and existential experience rather than just a behavioral one, and approach adult autistics who have undergone ABA have described as violating the fundamental tenets of bioethics as well as UN's Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So I think that it's that monopoly part of it, and
It's
the lack
money.
of research.
Are you saying?
So
like
you're talking
lobbying-
private equity
lobbying
companies
dollars?
going
Yeah.
into this, just like private equity with nursing homes. Like it's the same sort of,
And there's no private
because
equity.
there's money in it.
Yeah, and
Okay.
ASHA doesn't make money off of our therapy abilities. I mean, they do, but they don't make money off of our ability to serve clients. So when you have one group, and this is all speculation, this is all conjecture, but like when you have one group of folks who are using evidence-based therapy to make small gains, where and then you have another group that can try to they have an unlimited amount of money to hire lobbyists to push a narrative that makes people believe what they would expect to see. It's a whole lot easier to sell that because
Confirmation bias.
Yeah. It's a whole lot easier to say we all should be quiet in the movie theater because that's what we should do in a movie theater. And ABA, on its surface level says, hey, when you go into a movie theater, let's be quiet, or what happens? And that is completely different than what we do in a therapy room. We don't teach our kids to be quiet. We teach them how to model that language into something that can get them what they want or what they need or what they're doing.
That's why I really would love to pick the brain of someone who is dual certified in it and what order they got certified. because I hear a lot about new ABA, which is they're saying that there were issues with it in its development, and it came from ableist theories, and the guy was a racist or something like that. Sorry, don't quote me. But I want to know what this new ABA thing is, and I've seen online that people call it neurodiversity light, or they're trying, but it doesn't hit the mark to be neurodiversity affirming, because you are still requiring them to be like 40 hours a week, and there's all these other issues with it. But I really would love to pick the brain of someone who is dual certified to get a better understanding, because I don't know the ins and outs of ABA. I don't know what you do to extinguish a behavior that is undesirable. I would like to know more about that, and what new ABA means, and just the ins and outs of it, and their perspective as someone who is an SLP, and where they utilize the behavior part and where they utilize the SLP part.
Yeah, shouldn't it just be a tool in the toolkit is the idea? Like, if you're an SLP, can't you potentially use ABA principles for in certain situations for certain behaviors if it's appropriate? And then, but that's not the foundation or the basis of your practice. I think the issue often comes in when it's your one trick pony, like we just do ABA or we just do this. And that, of course, doesn't make sense at all to person-centered care.
Yeah, and we also, I have experienced this, the encroachment part on just SLP. So you have assistants, you have behavioral, I forget what they're called, but they're assistants, and they've had some training, not as extensive as I think it's a
BCBA.
BCBA.
It's not
Board
the BCBA,
certified.
it's the people who are
the
usually
RBT. So I've had sometimes that they try to write my goals for me, or they're working on language, and I'm like, that is completely different than what I am.
Feeding.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Yeah. So there is encroachment there, which is why I'm glad that ASHA, I don't know. I would like to hope that ASHA is looking into the encroachment part about it. And Matt, I'm sure you've got an opinion on, oh yes, that is ASHA's scope of practice.
That
or not.
Is.
Okay.
Is.
Yay.
That is. That's what we pay them for.
It doesn't sound like it sounds like when there's a whole lot of money and lobbying behind something, and if it's a lot cheaper for that RBT to do it than it is a speech therapist, then the healthcare system is going to try to cut costs if they can.
Yeah.
And this also where it goes, each state has such different rules on everything that this is where it becomes a giant cluster, to be truthful. Because ASHA can fight at the federal level, but then at the state level, they can implement different rules to either inhibit or encourage one or the other. I mean, I don't know.
It reminds me a little bit, we're not really talking about encroachment. I'm trying to apply within my own schema, but like the encroachment of music therapy also, and like how I just listened to a podcast that I love. It's a neuroscientist or a neurologist, and the person who, the music therapist who's curing aphasia through MIT. And, as a speech therapist, I know that that's not how it works. MIT is one tool in the toolkit of aphasia therapy, but when it sounds just exciting, and it sounds great when you can say this person is singing, and therefore now they can speak, and then you have them on a neurology platform, and then that just pushes it into the social consciousness of mainstream media or understanding of non-therapists that this is what it is. This is how you help people, and I just think it's unfortunate that seems to happen so often in our field, but
OTs and dysphagia.
Focused. Yeah. Well, and I think that one's a little bit, I wasn't on for that chat, and I am regretfully missed that one. I think that one has I don't know. They all have nuance, and I can kind of see both ways on that one. I think, again, music therapy should be a great adjunct to speech therapy, right? But I think the cognitive problem or the issue is just thinking that you're going to have one therapy strategy or one type of therapist that's going to fix something as complex, or not fix, just work on something as complex as the human brain.
So true.
I couldn't unmute myself. One of the worries that I always have about this stuff, and I don't know if it's a worry, I don't know if it's a complaint. The thing that pisses me off the most about this stuff is that I really don't care how much money somebody makes off of a therapy idea. Mm-hmm. What upsets me though is that they are taking money by selling something to somebody looking for a miracle.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't matter what miracle you're looking for. I don't care if it's in the autistic community or the deaf and hard of hearing community or the stroke community. Every single person in that family is affected. And they are looking for something because they know that the way society looks at their family member is as an other. Their kid is someone with autism. Their kid is someone who is deaf. Their family member is someone with a stroke or with dementia, and they're not part of society anymore. So they are desperate for when somebody tells them, this will get your person to be part of society. Mm-hmm. And it's never seems to be coming from the side of helping the person succeed. It is always coming from the let's relieve your fear. And oh, by the way, I can do that for you for the nice low payment of $99 a week, whatever. And that is what pisses me off. It's the blatant over the top. I'm charging you to make your family member normal, in quotes. And it's
capitalism,
like,
Matt. We can't open this can of worms. We can't do it tonight.
Mike's not even here to get in on the capitalism.
We don't even have a sponsor for this show, and we're doing it for the betterment of everybody. So, speechsciencepodcast.com, speechsciencepodcast@gmail.com. Coming up on the other side of the break, we are going to check in with the Informed SLP, and a big thanks to Dr. Meredith Harold for continuing to send us wonderful audio versions of their research. I always appreciate that. Also, we're going to check in with the wonderful question that we always like to ask at the end of every show.
What up, Asha?
What's up with Asha? We're also going to look at a research looking at dysphagia and anterior cervical spine surgery. But before we do all that, Marie, you had an opportunity to do your first interview, and that's going to be on next week's show. What was that about?
I sure did. And I'm very excited for those adult medical SLPs out there who have been looking for a biofeedback option for tongue strengthening for their patients with dysphagia. We've got a great interview for you coming from the E2 scientific team, inventors of the tongue-ometer. I'll be speaking with Elizabeth Lipton Daly, the co-founder and executive VP, also a speech-language pathologist, and Ed Steger, co-founder and president, and a 5-time head and neck cancer survivor.
Wow. We wanted to pre-sell that because, Marie, that is your first interview. Rachel, when are you doing an interview?
Hopefully soon. I've got some ideas.
Yes, we love that. And then, Michelle, we are going to be giving away a book on episode 165. It was Barbara Fernandez, right?
Yep, Barbara Fernandez, who was on a previous episode discussing her new book that's out there. You can still hop on Amazon and get this. It's From Surviving to Thriving. Sis, you've got this, From Surviving to Thriving as a Minority SLP. And she also is big into the tech world of speech pathology. And so part of the giveaway is a copy of the book and access to the online Speech and Language Academy, her library of fully interactive activities for speech and language practice with built-in data tracking. So be sure to hop on our website so you can sign up for that giveaway.
SpeechSciencePodcast.com, and it's SpeechSciencePodcast.com/giveaway to sign up there. You're listening to Speech Science.
And now for our regular research review, brought to you by the Informed SLP. The Informed SLP releases a monthly newsletter that brings you plain language reviews of only the newest, most clinically applicable research, keeping you up to date on advances in the field and saving you tons of time. So let's get to it.
If relationship-based services feel hard, you're not alone. This is a review of the article Play Connections, Relationship-Focused Early Childhood Intervention Training for Allied Health Practitioners, from the journal International Journal of Disability, Development, and Education. You walk into a home visit with a new family with plans for how you're going to use the parent-mediated strategies you've been learning running through your head. The child's mom greets you at the door, and she's on the phone. Sorry, I have to take this phone meeting, she whispers to you as she ushers you into the child's bedroom where the child is playing. She says, "You can do the session in here," and then closes the door. Has something like this happened to any of you? If so, you're not alone. It happened to me just last week. Supporting parent-child relationships is at the heart of early intervention services. But actually doing so can be, well, hard. There is a lack of training and support for actually going about using a relationship-based approach, not to mention organizational barriers as well. Barfoot and her team created a one-day workshop for early intervention providers in Queensland, Australia, to teach them about relationship-based services and provide practical training. They then gathered providers' perspectives at the end of the workshop and at a 3 to 6 month follow-up. While these workshops aren't publicly available at this time, the providers who participated have valuable insights into the benefits and barriers to implementing this model. The benefits. The providers reported back with many perceived benefits from using this approach. These included reduced levels of stress for the child and family, more affection and warmth between the parent and child, reduction in behavioral issues, and more. That's some big payoff. The barriers. First, family expectations. Some parents had the expectation that the therapist was there to quote-unquote fix their child. If the family had already received child-focused services, changing expectations was challenging. This was especially so if relationship-based services weren't the mainstream approach used in their early intervention program. Second, provider confidence and skills. It was difficult for providers to break their habits and also feel that they could clearly explain the model to parents. They noted concerns that they could offend parents by implying that their relationship with their child was a problem. They felt a keen need for more supervision and mentorship. Third, organizational constraints. Trying to do this approach in an organization that wasn't set up to support or encourage it was challenging. It was difficult to be the lone fish swimming upstream, and it made co-treat sessions challenging because of the conflicting approaches. Additionally, they found that the distractions in home settings, limited session length, and lack of management support hindered their ability to use this approach. Where we can go from here. From these providers' reflections, we can glean some suggestions for moving forward in using relationship-based approaches. First, clearly discuss expectations, approach, rationale, and format of sessions with parents at initial appointments. After all, we can't blame parents for not understanding expectations we haven't shared with them. Second, consider and reflect on what you see your role to be as the provider. Do you find yourself or the parent in the driver's seat? It's common to find our professional value in personally helping the children we work with. But how could we shift this mentality so that families are empowered? It might require a professional identity shift. Third, advocate for team training and reflective supervision and mentorship. Depending on your role in your setting, you may have limited influence over this. But consider ways that you could lessen the swimming upstream experience through work groups and perhaps case studies with like-minded colleagues. Need something really hands-on and practical to get started? Check out the manual linked in the written review for step-by-step instructions, scripts, and materials for implementing a relationship-based approach within early intervention settings.
Thanks for listening to this review. If you're interested in more, come visit us at www.theinformedslp.com. Tell us how you put the research into practice, or find us on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter at The Informed SLP.
Welcome to the Speech Science Podcast. It's the No Fun edition.
We all
Episode
shut
164.
down.
Rachel's here. Michelle, Marie's here. I'm here. I had an awesome question that I was going to do, but now I got to do a boring question. Here's a boring question for you guys. What are you doing over summer? I'm going to Disney. What are you doing, Rachel?
I like that you raised your hand, Rachel.
Thank you. Not that
She
any
didn't
of
use the raise your hand icon. She literally raised her hand.
Yeah.
This is like the No Fun League. Let's go.
So Matt is so bitter right now.
I'm angry.
I know you are. I'm speaking at Flasha July 15th through the 17th. One day of that. The end of July, I'm going to Scottsdale for a bachelorette party. Then in August, I'm going back to Scottsdale for a bachelorette party. And then the week after that, I'm going to St. Pete for a bachelorette party.
You got a lot
I
of
love
weddings
Marie's
coming
face
up.
on this one right now.
I have 4 weddings coming up this
Bachelorette
year.
summer.
That is,
wow.
You know what?
It
Though,
is.
that sounds like a lot of fun. I'll be honest. That sounds like a lot more fun.
I'm very excited. It's going to be an expensive year, an expensive summer, but I'm ready for it. Ready.
Love it. Michelle, Marie?
My face was like that because I really want to go to Arizona so bad. I'm kind of jealous.
Come
Marie's
join.
not in a
I
school
know.
like you guys, so
Right, this is true.
folks.
Summers, I still like to think of summer. I think, I don't know, I've just always thought of summer as its own special thing. I still kind of segment it out in my brain. But this summer's busy too. I have 5 weddings. It's wedding season, wedding year. But I will be going also for a bachelorette party for my first ever out of state bachelorette party going to Sacramento, California. Cannot wait.
Nice.
It is the summer of bachelorette parties. Look at you girls. Hey,
Michelle, I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel so glad that our friends group are like now past the getting married part. Because like going to multiple weddings in the summer no longer sounds fun.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of, I do agree
This
with
is
that.
what getting old looks like, Rachel and Marie.
Now they're more spaced out.
Right.
For example, I just went to one last weekend for the first wedding I've been to in a long time. And it was super fun. So, and we got to go kid free, which is even better.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Their
Congrats.
visit over the weekend, we could go to this wedding. So, pretty fun times there. But what am I doing this summer? Spending as much time as I can near water because I love that about the summer. Grew up swimming, doing swim team, lifeguarding, teaching swim lessons, and now especially living in hot Central Texas. We are doing as much stream, creeking, swimming pools, and water time that we can. I don't have a whole lot of travels planned yet because we have a few things up in the air family wise, but hopefully we'll be getting towards the Midwest to see some friends and family. And I plan to get to the coast at some point, speaking of water, because I'm not that far from the Gulf Coast. So we should be utilizing that.
Definitely.
Rachel, how close are you to Orlando?
2.5 to 3 hours.
I was going to say, like,
okay.
Do you
might
consider
be a way.
that short or far?
Okay, it depends, but I will let you know that about 2 months ago, I drove to Orlando and back in a day for a baby shower, and that was the nicest thing I've ever done. I would say.
It's fair.
I have a
because the
rule.
different places I've lived, though, it changes my perspective on driving time and how what is far away versus what is not. And I may have said this before to you all, but for example, I'm from Ohio, and the idea of driving from Ohio to from Columbus, Ohio to Cleveland, Ohio. It's 2 hours, 2.5 hours. I'm like, ugh, why would I want to drive that? But if I'm outside of Ohio, like in Texas, or when I lived in West Texas and I found out I had friends going to the Grand Canyon and I looked it up and it was 10 hours from me. And I was like, okay, I'll meet you there for the weekend. So it's just a different perspective.
It is.
Mm-hmm. I have a rule that I cannot go somewhere unless I am there longer than it takes me to drive there and back.
That seems fair.
I've broken that rule, so I can't really.
I mean, I've broken the rule, but like that is my like immediate, like, am I going to be there longer than it takes me to drive there? Because if the answer is yes,
drive
or
there
almost,
with children or on your own?
On my own. So like last summer,
you have to double it with kids.
Last summer, my best man from my wedding and I drove down to Atlanta. It's a 9 or 10 hour drive. Drove down to Atlanta, saw a Braves game, hung out, did the College Football Hall of Fame, got food, and then drove back. Mm-hmm. It was close, but it was there. All right. New article. This is looking at dysphagia following anterior cervical spine surgery. The most interesting part I saw out of this was that the feeling of dysphagia versus the actual physiological dysfunction did not correlate.
Mm-hmm. I thought that was interesting too, Matt.
Right. And for those of us in the medical field, there's been a huge push over the last couple of years to abandon bedside dysphagia evals, because unless we are Superman or Superwoman, we can't see what's happening. We can't palpate. I was going to say Palpatine. There's the Star Wars. We can't feel dysphagia. We can feel if the hyoid's moving, but that doesn't mean anything. I'm going to hold off what I was going to say, but like, there's a lot that I'm taking out of this that I'm going to carry over, not just for surgery patients, but other dysphagia patients.
Yeah, what I took from it was that those subjective symptoms of dysphagia maybe aren't going to, they're not always going to show up as, and we're talking about persistent or more chronic symptoms. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You won't necessarily see them on video fluoroscopy. And if you don't, that might be an indication for getting a FEES or a referral to ENT. So I like that there's a bit of there's some additional steps you can take if that occurs, because certainly a patient's perception of their symptoms is really important, and it can be frustrating when there isn't anything that shows up. I mean, oftentimes that's always like, yeah, that's great, we didn't see anything. But for a patient who's having symptoms, that isn't always helpful.
I was happy when you shared this article because I have a personal family experience with it. My dad has had multiple neck surgeries when I was younger, and middle school, high school range. And it was long before I had anything to do or any real knowledge about speech pathology. And I've actually talked to him since, because in grad school, I ended up talking to him. He had anterior spinal surgery, fusion surgery. And then within a couple of weeks of having that surgery, I remember sitting at the dinner table with him, and this is pre-SLP, Michelle. Mm-hmm. He said he felt like something was pushing on his throat when he would try to swallow. And it was so interesting reading this, because I want to send it to my dad and see what his take is on some of it. But I'm glad that this is being brought up as, hey, because I said, hey, did an SLP ever talk to you? Did you ever get any sort of, touch base with a speech pathologist in the medical setting? And he didn't. And so I'm hopeful that maybe this is a avenue to support those people, because he ended up having whatever small percentage of that surgery where the bone graft shifted and it physically was pushing on his throat. So he had to have a second surgery. But I don't know, that symptomatic versus what is being shown was a big focus of this research article. And I'm just glad to see that we're connecting SLPs with anterior spinal surgery as a potential need.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Definitely. Relatively common and oftentimes very frustrating for the patient, and because it can take a really long time for the swelling to go down. And then after that all goes down, maybe there's going to be some residual issues. So it can be frustrating for them.
Are you seeing referrals for that?
Oh, definitely.
Good. I'm happy to hear that, because that wasn't my experience how many years ago.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. Relatively common in inpatient rehab, and similarly in acute care. And a lot of times what my experience was that it was kind of like, well, you got to kind of wait for the swelling to go down, and they would sometimes need an NG, or they would need, some sort of strategy or modification to help. But there's not necessarily like a rehabilitation approach a lot of times in those more acute phase of recovery.
But I think that reassurance could be really important for people, that it's validated of why they might be having these symptoms and this discomfort.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I'm trying to remember now.
I was going to say, here's from the article. It says possible anatomic causes of post-anterior cervical spinal surgery dysphagia are often overlooked, including acute surgically induced changes in spine orientation, loss of range of motion, and or presence of potentially obstructive foreign bodies. These changes may alter the perception of swallowing physiology in a way that traditional video fluoroscopy parameters cannot measure, leading to mismatch in subjective complaints versus objective findings.
And until that swelling goes down, I remember in the article it mentioned that, they're not going to be able to clear that food in the molecular space and actually probably feel better with the swallow.
Yeah, so more support for a platinum standard in dysphagia evaluation, starting with the CSE, and then video fluoroscopy and fees could be best friends in that situation.
And that's what I was alluding to at the very beginning, Marie. That is like, I feel like this is even more research to support what we have been saying in the field now for the last couple of years, that, what did you call it? The platinum standard, the gold standard, whatever. Like, there are too many SLP reports that I read that they're like, bedside eval showed coughing. And it's like, well, that doesn't mean diddly anymore. Like, I have no idea. I mean, I also wonder if this means, I have a couple thoughts. So one of the things that I talk to my patients about is that the way our system is set up is that when we have a choking moment, our body says, that happened. We need to save our soul. We need to save our lungs and get everything out of there. But then our body doesn't know when it's cleared, and that can stay there for 5 or 10 minutes. Whatever that time lane is, that's what I tell some of my patients. It kind of makes sense that if they've got swelling or surgery or something else sitting there, that body has a hard time identifying what is located there, right? Or am I missing something completely?
Well, it's interesting because I just went to a manual therapy course, and we were doing manual therapy or just working in the laryngeal area, and just the slightest, movement or pressure in a different spot on the neck was really impactful, even from the back, I noticed. So it just that small change really impacted me, and I didn't enjoy the feeling of it. So I can sort of sympathize with a minor or even major change to the system, and how much of an effect that would have, and the sensation of it, and how confusing that would be for someone who isn't an expert in swallowing, doesn't understand, or had never had to think about the swallowing mechanism before.
I find it interesting. SpeechSciencePodcast.com or SpeechSciencePodcast@gmail.com. All right. At the end of the show, we always like to say,
What's up, Asha?
You can't tell that it's only been a month since we've recorded a show. So I thought we would take a quick moment to look at the ASHA Advocate, mainly because that is the word that I've been trying to teach my pragmatic students this month is advocacy. And looking at a couple, don't laugh at me, whoever was laughing at that comment. A couple of things that I thought was of interest is the ASHA is pushing for the newborn hearing screening bill is introduced into the Senate. And then also a couple changes to the benefit and payment parameters for the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services. They say that additional changes include a clarification of Section 1557 of the Affordable Care Act, that a requirement that insurers, issuers offer standardized plan options at every type of metal level. I don't understand that part, as well as a couple other things that they were pushing through. So they're making changes. I just don't understand all of them.
Keep pushing.
I would
As
also
the business owner that's like, please, I want to get paid. Please more. Please, sir, may I have another?
Oh my goodness. I always hear about the newborn hearing screenings. I guess I'm surprised to hear about it again. Is it not approved? I keep hearing about it for like years, I feel like, about it being approved to do. I don't know.
I have no idea.
Okay, no one else
Matt,
is
any other info?
It says it was first authorized in 2000, and it's just more of a reauthorization.
Oh,
of
right. They need
everything.
to reauthorize it. Yes, that makes complete sense. Yes, they have to. Okay.
No, you're good. Including $16 million in funding for the Centers for the CDC, and then $19 million for the Health Resource and Service Administration, as well as $514 million for the National Institute of Deafness and Other Communication Disorders, or the NIH, and then $126 million. These numbers just seem made up at this point.
I was going to say,
National
I hear all these
on
numbers and
Disability.
I don't register them when it gets up that high.
Yeah, it's more of just a reauthorization of the early childhood newborn screenings, which my daughter passed or failed or whatever it was. So I have an opinion on that. But
interesting. That's right. They always have to reauthorize. Otherwise, people will forget that these are important needs and that money might get allocated elsewhere.
Right.
And it's only ever authorized for a period. They authorize it it's never authorized indefinitely.
And continuing to speak about advocacy and ASHA, I'm just looking at ASHA's website. They doubled down on their position statement from 2018 that they're continuing to advocate for safe and appropriate work settings as a contribution to help and terrible events like what occurred in Uvalde this week. So they compiled a list for resources on ASHA's website that the New York Times had provided. So you can go look at that website if you feel like supporting, but I'm happy that they posted that in less than 20 or a little more than 24 hours. Yeah,
that's right. I'm glad that you shared that.
As we wrap up the show, what are you guys looking forward to in the next 7 to 10 days that is not therapy related?
I'm going on a boat this weekend.
Yeah.
I'm on a boat.
Yeah.
I'm on a boat.
Wow. A boat.
Long weekend. And
yeah,
some quality time with family. For a lot of people. I know not everybody has that.
That's true. I do have Monday off.
Yeah.
My wife and children are going out of town for my niece and nephew's birthday party, and I unfortunately cannot go because, like an idiot, I scheduled my first off-season practice this weekend for the summer for my high school team and
the bowling team.
Yeah, and I've also got some work to do on Saturday. So unfortunately, I can't go to a birthday party. So I'll be coaching bowling and therapizing in a nursing home.
That sounds fun.
Yeah, it's something. Oh, wait, I said not therapy related. I'll coach and watch movies when I'm home by myself.
Perfect.
Michelle?
Go ahead, Marie. No, I thought I already answered. I was
did you?
A long weekend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I remember that. Well, my anniversary is coming up on Monday. So I don't know if my husband's serious, but he thinks that we should watch all of the Jurassic Park movies, old and new, which we already watched 1.5, starting from the beginning. And I'm already kind of sick of it. So.
I love your husband, and I have never seen a picture of him, but I love him right now.
Oh, I've got one. I've taken up some gardening. We have a raised garden. I got my 3, almost 4-year-old into this, and I'm a very new green thumb, so this is very new to me. And we bought a couple plants that were already sprouted, but we put down seeds. I bought packets of 20-cent seeds, and being how much sun this garden gets, things sprouted in 48 hours. I should send you a picture, but I'm gonna have to cut down what grew because, like, to remove some of the sprouts of the beans and the peppers and onions and carrots. We kind of got a little hodgepodge of everything. So we'll see what happens. Now, trying to get my kid to understand that we will not be able to eat the carrots for like months is a little difficult, but hopefully the tomatoes and the peppers and the beans will be quicker than that.
Oh my gosh, good for you. I'm jealous of all the sun you're getting.
So my question, I love your garden, Michelle.
Thanks.
On your anniversary, do you plan to finish the last Jurassic World movie, or is it like a week of celebration?
Yeah, it'll be across several days. But here's the thing. Yeah. I think it was like an idea, and it was a good idea. But then we watched the first movie, and it's incredible, obviously. Mm-hmm. And then the second one's not great. So I'm sort of like, I think the first one's good, and I'm just not sure if the rest of them are going to be worth the time.
So the second one I used to think was worse than the third one, and then I forgot about the talking raptor in the third one when Alan is dreaming and the raptor is talking to him.
Oh my gosh.
Don't spoil it for her.
The movie is 20 years old.
I've seen it. I just don't remember it. And the thing is I always wondered, why have I not seen those more than once? Mm-hmm. And I'm starting to remember why.
Yep. I will say the second movie is good until they go on the boat to San Diego.
Matt, did you know that Maria and her husband were so into Jurassic Park?
I did not.
This is like a new connection.
There is Jurassic Park action figures right over here.
That's amazing.
Yes.
I love that.
I am a huge nerd. I also forgot to say something earlier, y'all. This is the end of the show. The music's playing. No one's really listening at this point anyway. My son did Soapbox Derby.
I saw pictures. How was it?
So is that the one he rides in?
Yeah, he finished 9th out of like 16 racers. It was his first year. And so like there is a fear that your son or daughter is going to crash because they're driving a fiberglass wooden vehicle between 20 and 25 miles an hour down the hill at the age of 9, 8, 7, or 10.
They have helmets and stuff.
They have a bike helmet, Michelle. Okay. That is it. There's no seatbelt. So Michael went down, did the hill, boop, won his first race. He's in the vehicle waiting for the next set of racers to come down the hill.
Ooh.
He's in a truck. His little race car is on the back of the truck. The truck driver, the little Dodge Ram driver, decides this is the time that he's going to pull down the hill. A girl going down the hill, like, gets out of her lane and hits the truck head on at about 20 or 25 miles an hour. And the sound...
Was everyone okay?
She was okay. The car was destroyed. But
her car or the Ram truck?
Her car. Her little Soapbox Derby car was destroyed. And the sound of fiberglass crunching against the tire of a truck is a sound that I cannot get out of my head. Her dad booked it down the hill, and then her mom screamed like the most blood-curdling scream ever at the bottom of the hill because everyone just yelled, "Brake, brake, brake," and then she slammed into the truck head on. Whew. Right? And then like 10 minutes later, Michael's back in his car to go back down the hill, and I'm just like, oh dear God, don't let that guy drive again.
That's scary.
Yes.
Yikes.
But he finished 9th. It was a good day.
All right, well, that's good.
Our intro music is Please Listen Carefully by Jazar's licensed under an attribution and share alike license. Our bump music was County Fair Rock, copyright at John Deku. Find his music at soundcloud.com/dirtdogmusic. And if you're like John and you like making music, we would love to feature your music as any part of our show. The Informed SLP used At the Count by Broke for free, licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution license, and our closing music was The Slow Burn by Kevin MacLeod, licensed under a Creative Commons Attribution license. In the immortal words of Janice Wright, always be a willow. The mighty oak looks strong until it breaks under the pressure. A willow will return to form. For fellow willows, Rachel, Michelle, Marie, the missing Mike, I'm Matt. Until next week, so long, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. We ended on kind of an aggressive note there.
Which parts?
Like the story.
Oh, yeah, well.
This is why I don't do anything.
Speech Science is edited and produced by MWH Production. Please follow Speech Science on Twitter at Speech Science PC and like our page on Facebook. And rate and subscribe to our podcast anywhere you get your podcasts.